Hey there, I'm Susan Purney Mark. In the past few videos, I've been demonstrating and talking about mark making both on fabric and paper and different ways of creating interesting pattern and texture. In this little video, I've got a fun weaving project, something a little bit different, and it just showcases all the different ways that you can delve deeper into that idea of patterning with different kinds of weaving patterns, different fabrics to use, playing with value and combining color, and what happens when you stay pretty monochrome. And I think you'll like it. Stay tuned, let me know what you think, and love to hear from you. Let's get going. I thought I'd start with this one, which is really just a very basic one-to-one weave. And the fabrics I chose were all ones that had been white and had been marked up with lots of black marks and paint and so on. The contrast was too strong, so I went over it with white paint on a sponge roller, toned everything down, but still had some interesting value changes on the fabric. And I tore it into strips and then wove it together, just looking at maybe having a little bit of difference in the fabrics next to each other. I didn't have a lot of fabrics with lines or dots in any one place, although they do congregate in this little spot. The reason I tear the fabrics is because I like the raw edges here. I can be assured that the cut is straight and even throughout by tearing it rather than cutting it. And the little bit of fringe in that, I think, just adds something to the overall look on it. This is the basic one that I would be doing. This one has a bit more color in it and still a limited palette. There's the black and white, the marked fabrics in there, like you saw on the previous one, with some fabrics that have splotches of paint on them, but still a limited palette, black, white, and a little bit of color in there, something a bit larger. How I do this is to have that black strip working alongside. I'll show you in a moment. When I want to have that little narrow strip of black, or it could be any color, I start by having one strip and then the contrast to be a bit smaller. And I would put some fusible web along there. Then I would just offset that strip and fuse it down so you get that black margin. What I'd recommend is that you do it from this side so that you can make sure that the strip that's coming out from underneath is even all the way across. And then you would treat it just as one fabric for your weaving. You could put a second strip on the other side and add some detail in there. So you can play around with where and when you place the insertion strips onto the other regular strips. We'll look at doing some actual weaving now with our strips. And in this case, I wanted to show that I've fused some fusible web onto the back of just a regular piece of fabric, nothing in particular, because it'll be underneath, it'll be the base. And so I've made sure that the fusing extends probably far longer than what I need for this project. And I've got my strips in different widths. And as I mentioned earlier, I've torn them all, so there's all rough, raw edges on here. And in the other ones, I've done just a basic over-under weave. In this case, I'm going to do a different weave. In this case, I'm going to do a different weave. It would be under 1/2 under 1/2. Here, oh, and before I do that, I wanted to mention that I'm looking to achieve a bit of a value and color change, that in this upper left corner, it's going to be more the lights, and then extending into gradually working this way as lights into darks, and then in this case across it'll be lights into darks. So we'll see how that evolves. I'm going to take one off, leave two, one, leave two, then one, leave two, and one off. And I'm going to be chasing bits of thread all across here. I'll start with just a few light ones, and you can see here that I've done a join. And so I'll probably try and make sure that the join is underneath one of the strips, and that way it'll be hidden. Then I put the strips back in place. Now I'm going to go to the next strip in the sequence, and I'm going to go up with this one, then it'd be over two, under one, over two, under one, and over two. And this one would be an over because of I've shifted up the weave. And I'm going to try and move the strip as close to the previous strip as I can, and I can adjust it once I've placed the other pieces back on the other strips. So you can see just a bit of an adjustment here. This isn't a fast technique by any means in order to get it to be even and lay flat. And you notice that I've pinned these strips, the horizontal strips, just to hold them in place to keep them from shifting. Then now there's another one, so it's leaving two, under one, over two, under one, over two, under one. Now I've got the three strips down, so we're returning to that original part where it's under one, over two, and in this case I see there's a join here, so I'm going to take that one out and find another strip. Over. I wanted to point out something with this final strip is that there's a lot of white in this area, but it is darker there. I planned the placement so it's more into the dark area there. I've got the entire thing woven, and now I'm going to just take some time making sure the strips are all laying flat and even. There's not any overlaps. Squeeze things up if I need to. Move them so that there's none of the underneath showing. And then I've got enough of the underneath here all the way around to sew down there. So the next step is pressing, and I would use a hot dry iron. When it comes time to do the pressing, I want to make sure that I'm doing more of an up-down motion rather than pushing the iron across the surface, at least in the beginning, because I want all those strips to fuse onto the background. Here it is, all finished. I've been stitching around the edge, and then I trimmed off all the loose ends, and I'm pretty pleased with it. I think it's interesting value changes and color, playing with black, white, and color. And you can see just from this simple exercise how many possibilities there might be to use this kind of technique and to play around with different ways of weaving it, different things that you could weave into it. I had mentioned earlier about putting ribbon underneath so you could just weave some ribbon under. Lots of possibilities, and love to see how you work with it and what you come up with. And remember, I'd love for you to share and like and subscribe to my channel. It would be wonderful to stay connected. Thanks so much.